Hello, in this lecture I will keep talking about planning sufficient resources, or MRP, we call it material requirement planning. Let's first recall what we discussed in the first part. We talk about master production scheduling, bill of materials, the concept of dependent demand items, and then how we update inventory records for MRP explosion, right? So we actually call them, these are the three critical inputs for MRP. We also talk about ERP systems. We said that they integrate many business functions to efficiently managing our businesses or facilities, right? So in the second part of this lecture, I'll be talking about types of lot size policies that we can use to determine the order quantity or the sizes of orders, okay? And then I'll be talking about MRP explosion to determine planned order releases for each sub-assembly, each component, each child to meet the demand for the parent, okay? So in order to determine the lot sizes, first I would like to discuss some planning factors that affect MRP, material requirement planning. The first and the most critical planning factors is the lead time. As you guys remember, in inventory management course, we said that lead time is a time between giving an order and receiving that order from our supplier, right? That's how we determine the reorder point in a simple EOQ model. This is true if we purchase goods from our suppliers, but we might also produce our components, our sub-assemblies in the same plant. Then the lead time will be the time between placing an order to the workshop for the production and then receiving that item in my storage area, okay? So planning this lead time might be a little bit difficult if you are going to produce in your own shop, okay? Because it consists of different items such as setup time for machines, setup time for equipment, processing time of these raw materials, processing times of the raw materials, and materials handling time between workstations. If there is a queue, how much they are going to wait. The waiting time will also affect the lead time to finish that production order. And if you come up with the wrong, inaccurate lead times, then it may cause some issues, such as if an item arrives in your inventory earlier than needed, then inventory holding costs increase. Even we may not have enough space to keep those work in process in the workplace. Then we may have to put them in some other places, and then material handling costs might increase as well, okay? If an item arrives too late, this is not wanted, okay? Because we may have to stop our production, right? And then if it arrives too late, then we face with stockouts. Then we cannot feed our production, and then the production should be stopped. And then as soon as we receive the items, in order to meet our deadline, to due date for meeting our customer orders, we need to be best in our production. So then we may face with expediting costs. Our workers should work in an overtime, and we know that labor costs in overtime is higher than labor costs in a regular time, or we may need to have another shift and hire additional part-time worker, right? So then we face with high costs. Okay, suppose that okay, you may even ask me how we can come up with an accurate lead time. Then In order to determine accurate lead time, you have to use your historical data. You may even need to use some advanced tools such as simulation softwares or some analytical models from queuing theory and so on. Okay? Because we are talking about the basics of MRP, we are going to assume that lead time in almost all of our example problems, lead time is fixed. Okay. In general, there are three lot size policies could be used to determine order sizes. Okay, and they are very simple policies. These are the simplest policies we will even have to determine lot sizes for our MRP. The first one is fixed order quantity. The second one is periodic order quantity, and the last one is lot for lot policy. Let's talk about their details briefly. Okay? Fixed order quantity, as you can understand from its name, the order size is fixed. Okay? Every time you give an order, the size of the order is the same as before. Okay? The order quantity, the order size was determined in advance. Okay? Even after you talk to your supplier or according to the batch sizes in the production plan, according to the size of cars, according to the size of in a buffer area, and so on. Okay? Even EOQ model is an example of fixed order quantity policy, right? In EOQ, we solve simple models and then determine the optimal order quantity. If you purchase your goods from your supplier, truckload capacity might determine the fixed order size. Okay. If you would like to get some quantity discounts from your suppliers, then your supplier may determine the fixed order quantity. Okay. So let's solve an example problem to understand this policy. This item is from our previous lecture. This is for seat subassembly. It's called part C. Remember, we talk about bill of material for producing a bicycle. Bicycle is a parent and it has some child. It has some children, and these children are called sub-assemblies or components. Some of them are purchased, some of them produced in our workshop, right? And this is the seat subassembly, and the lot size is 230 units. It is fixed, and the lead time is 2 weeks. Okay, and this is on-hand inventory at the beginning of planning horizon, and these are the scheduled received. This is the scheduled received, of which that order was given in advance. Then at the beginning of week 1, I'm going to receive that many units of seat subassembly. Okay. And when we we did this before in the first part, okay, when we go ahead and calculate or update inventory information, we see that there is 117 units on hand at the end of week 3, and the demand at the beginning of week 4, in week 4 is 120. So this inventory is not enough to meet this demand. So what's gonna happen? We need to give an order, right? And because the order size is 200 units, these 200 units should be received right here at the beginning of week 4. Then I can use that. I can use that 230 with my on-hand inventory to meet this one. And then 230 plus 117 minus 120 results in 227 units on-hand inventory at the end of week 4. Okay, and it will be kept in my storage area during week 5 until we try to meet this demand. Okay, so because this one is less than this one, I can easily meet this demand from my inventory, and the inventory level reduces to 77. However, I cannot meet week 7 demand from my stock, right? Then I should also have another order. And that order should be available at the beginning of week 7. And the order size is 230 units, right? And this is going to be the ending inventory for the next planning horizon. Okay, so there are 2 orders should be available should be received at the beginning of week 4 and week 7. Okay, so when these orders should be given, because lead time is 2 weeks, these orders should be given 2 weeks in advance. Okay, at the beginning of week 2 and at the beginning of week 5. So there are 2 orders that will be given at these time periods. Then they will be available at the beginning of these weeks to meet my requirement. And these requirements are for final assembly of the chair. Chair. Okay. And the second policy is periodic order quantity. As you can understand from its name, instead of fixing the quantity, we fix the period. Okay, so every P period, we give an order as long as there is a requirement. So the amount of total requirement or gross requirement during P period will determine our order size. So the POQ will be determined in week T using total gross requirements during the next P week, starting from week T, minus on-hand inventory at the end of week T minus 1, or at the beginning of week T. Okay? Let's take a look at an example problem to understand how the order sizes using periodic order quantity policy is used. Lead time is still the same, 2. In this policy, in this POQ policy, we have to determine the number of periods. In this example, the number of periods is 3. So every 3 weeks, we are going to give an order if we need it, okay? If there is a requirement. But the first time the inventory levels goes below 0 is right here. So this on-hand inventory is not enough. These numbers are the same as before, okay? So because the inventory level goes below 0, we need to have an order, right? The order should be received. Then how much order will be received? How we are going to determine how much order we will give? We are going to consider 3-week requirements starting from week 4. Okay, where the inventory goes below 0. So week 4 requirement, week 5 requirement, and week 6 requirement, because the period is 3, will be considered, okay, and which they are going to be added in order to determine gross requirement. Is there any scheduled receipts during these weeks? There is no. Is there any on-hand inventory at the end of week 3 or at the beginning of week 4? Yes, there is 117. Then after we subtract 117 from the gross requirements during week 4, 5, and 6, we will determine the need, the net requirement, okay, which is 153. So 153 units should be received at the beginning of week 4. Okay, then this order should be given 2 weeks before. Then I'm gonna use this one and this inventory to meet this requirement. The ending inventory will be 150 at the end of week 4. No requirement at week 5, so still the same inventory. And week 6, I have exactly what I need because this number was considered to determine this order size, right? So you can easily guess that at the end of 3-week period, there will be no ending inventory because why? Because periodic order quantity gives an order which has an amount of needed to meet 3-week demand or 4-week demand, whatever your period is. So no ending inventory at the end of week 6. Then I cannot meet this one. Okay, so how much order I give? I need to look at 3-week period ahead. 7, 8, 9. However, week 9 is not located in our planning horizon, so I'm going to consider these 2 weeks, and there is no requirement right here, no scheduled receipts and no inventory on hand, so the order will have a size of 120, and this order will be given 2 weeks before. And in total, we will give 2 orders at the beginning of week 2 and week 5 with an amount of these numbers. Okay, and this is how we, okay, and this is the last policy. This is the easiest, this is the simplest policy we can apply, okay? And it's called lot for lot policy. Lot for lot policy says this: how much you need for this week? Give me that much order. Okay, it only gives an order with an amount of how much we need for that single period, single week, single day. Okay, let's take a look at an example. Same part. The policy is lot for lot. Okay, so this is where we go, inventory goes below 0 because on-hand inventory is not enough to meet this demand. How much required? Only 3 units are required. Then I can use my on-hand inventory, then meet demand. Then we are going to give an order with a size of 3 units. 3 units will be received at the beginning of week 4. Because of lead time, this order will be given at the beginning of week 2. Okay, our supplier is fine with it. Our workshop is fine with it. Okay, there is no restriction, there is no constraints. Okay, and they say that regardless of the size of your order, we are happy to meet it, even if it is 1 unit. Okay, otherwise you cannot apply lot for lot policy. And then as you can easily see that there is no ending inventory, on-hand inventory at the end of week 4 and 5. Okay, and then because no on-hand inventory, no scheduled receipts right here, so then I need an order with a size of 150. It should be received at the beginning of week 6, and this order should be given at the beginning of week 4. Okay, as soon as I receive it, I am going to meet that demand. The on-hand inventory will be 0. And similarly for week 7, no inventory. As you can see that when you apply lot for lot policy, the ending inventory in these periods are 0. That's why we are going to say that in few minutes. Okay, lot for lot policy results in minimum average inventory, minimum inventory holding cost. However, as you can easily see that this policy causes 3 orders. In previous policies, we gave 2 orders. Okay, that's why lot for lot policy causes higher number of orders than periodic order and fixed order quantity policies. If the setup cost is high, then this might be a problem. However, if the holding cost is high, lot for lot policy may result in lower annual holding and ordering cost. Okay, when we compare these 3 policies with respect to the average inventory in the last 5 weeks, because starting from week 4, we start to give new orders. Okay, that's why I only consider the last 5 weeks. Okay, so these numbers come from where? These numbers come from the fixed order quantity policy. Let me show it. That was a fixed order quantity policy, and starting from week 4, we gave orders, and these numbers are on-hand inventory numbers from week 4 to week 9. Okay, so these are the amount of units we keep in our storage area throughout this period. So the average inventory will be the sum of on-hand inventory divided by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks. And for periodic order quantity policy, the average inventory is 60, and as you can easily guess that for the lot for policy, it's a 0. As we said before, lot for lot policy minimizes average inventory, okay? So these are the insights we can easily derive. Fixed order quantity policy generates a high level of average inventory, higher than periodic order quantity and higher than lot for lot. Periodic order quantity reduces the amount of average on-hand inventory when we compare with fixed order quantity. And lot for lot minimize inventory cost, however, maximizes or causes high number of orders. Another issue in MRP for dependent demand item is safety stock. Okay. In practice, we usually consider safety stock for independent items, for the end items, because as we will learn in a few minutes, when we explode MRP, okay, the safety stock, the considered safety stock in end item will also be considered for the dependent items. However, if there is a high uncertainty, there is an uncertainty in future gross requirements or lead time or size of the scheduled receipts or the amount of scrap that will be produced for dependent demand items, then you may consider additional safety stock for your dependent demand items. Otherwise, as I said before, we use safety stock for end items, okay, to protect ourselves against fluctuation customer orders or lead time. Let me just give an example to safety stock consideration for dependent item. In this example, safety stock for item C is determined as 80, okay? Let's see how this affects our ordering policy. And this is the time where the inventory goes below 0, okay? And because we applied fixed order quantity policy, we received that order, okay? And that order was given right here, okay? And using the on-hand inventory, this is the ending inventory on hand at week 4. And then no requirement, it is kept in the storage area, okay? And there is a requirement right here. So I can easily meet this requirement from my stock, right? Because 227 is greater than 150, right? When I meet that stock, the on-hand inventory reduces to 77, which is lower than safety stock level. So we cannot allow it, okay? Because our manager said that my safety stock, I should always keep 80 units on hand. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna give an order, okay? And that order will be available at the beginning of week 6, will be received at week 6. Because the order size, because we use this FOQ, this order will be given right here, and I will receive that order, okay, use on-hand inventory, and then meet that requirement, and this is gonna be the ending inventory at week 6. So after I meet this requirement, the inventory level reduces to this one because it is higher than safety stock. No need to give an additional order, okay? This is how we can consider safety stock for dependent demand items. Okay, it's time to talk about MRP explosion, okay? In order to explode MRP, as we said that before, we need MPS, we need inventory information, and we need bills of material information. And then we explode MRP and calculate how much each component is required at each period, and then we will also determine when we will give an order for each component. Okay, and then after MRP explosion, we will get some important data that could be used to take an action in workshop, or develop some dispatch lists or supplier schedules. Even we will use those data for our capacity planning and so on. And later on, all of these will be used to develop our manufacturing resource plan. Okay, so that's why MRP explosion is a very critical step for manufacturing plans. Now, let's see what we mean with MRP explosion. MRP explosion simply translates, converts NPS and other sources of demand into the requirements needed for all of the sub-assemblies, components, raw materials, okay, which are going to be used to make the parent items, to make the end items. So the gross requirements, items gross requirements, could be obtained from MPS, planned order releases for parents, or any other requirements. Okay, so in order to determine gross requirements, we will be using bill of material information. In the bicycle example, we know that in order to make one bicycle, we need to have 2 wheel rims, right? So that 2 will be used to determine how much wheel rim is required. And we also said that wheel rims could be used for different types of bicycles or different models of bicycles, and those information are also needed. Okay, but as we did before, I will only consider one SKU, one type of bicycle, one type of chair at a time, okay, for the simplicity. Now let's take a look at how MRP is exploded. In this example, I'm gonna use the bill of material information in chair assembly, okay? So there is a chair at the first level, leather chair, it's a parent, okay, and which is made by other 3 sub-assemblies. One of them is seat sub-assembly. To make one chair, I need to have 1 seat assembly. To make 1 seat assembly, and this is, by the way, located at the second level, this is an intermediate component, okay, and it is made in our workshop, okay? The green blocks, the green items are made in our workshop, the blue items are purchased items, okay? In order to make 1 seat assembly, I need 1 seat frame. And to make 1 seat frame, I need to have 4 seat frame boards. Good? And also to make 1 seat sub-assembly, I need to purchase 1 seat cushion. Okay? So we are going to use this information to develop our MRP. Let's start with seat sub-assembly, okay? In practice, of course, we always start with MPS of the parent item, okay? But for the simplicity, let's start with this one. And we apply fixed order quantity policy with an amount of 230 units, and the lead time is 2 weeks. This is what we did before, okay? When I explained the fixed order quantity policy, this is the table we came up with. And according to this plan, we should give 2 orders, one at the beginning of week 2, other at the beginning of week 5, and the order size are 230. Okay, what they mean, it means that the workshop, our worker, should start to assembly seats, should start to assemble 230 seeds at the beginning of week 2 and at the beginning of week 5. Okay. Otherwise, I cannot meet my due dates or deadline for final assembly, of there. Okay. So in order to start to assembly 230 seeds right here, I need some other components, right? When these components should be available? These components should also be available at the beginning of week 2. How many units of seed frame and seed cushion should be available? Because the parent-child relationship is 1-to-1, according to this bill of material information, 200 units should be available. So these numbers determine the gross requirement for each component. Okay? And for the seed frames, we use FOQ policy with an amount of 300 units, and the lead time is 1 week. And seed cushion is purchased according to our contracts with our supplier. The supplier said that I am fine with any amount. That's why we apply lot for lot policy, okay, so that we can also minimize inventory cost. And so these planned order releases will be the gross requirement for each component, and as well as this one, okay? And there is only one scheduled receipt for seed frame at the beginning of week 2, no scheduled receipt for seed cushion. And on-hand inventory for seed frame is 40 units at the beginning of week 1, and no on-hand inventory for this one. Then what we are gonna do, we are gonna go ahead and fill this table up. 40 will be available at the beginning of week 1, okay? So this one is not enough to meet this demand. However, 300 units will be received at the beginning of week 2 because we gave that order before or in advance, okay? So after use that one and this inventory, the remaining inventory will be 110. 300 plus 40 minus 230, 110. No requirements, no scheduled receipts. So inventory will be the same. This is not enough to meet this one because there is no scheduled receipt. So I should have given an order, and that order should be received, okay, at the beginning of week 5. How much order I should give? 300 units, okay? When it should be given? 1 week before. Then this is gonna be the ending inventory for seed frame. Let's do for seed cushion. Policy is this: no scheduled receipts, no on-hand inventory. So in order to meet this demand, I need to receive 200 units at the beginning of week 2. Lead time is 1 week. This order should be given at the beginning of week 1. And similarly for the second order. And the order size is determined by how much I need. Okay? Now let's take a look at the demand, the requirement for seed frame boards. Its parent is seed frame. To make one seed frame, I need to have 4 seed frame boards. Okay? So I'm going to use this information. This is for seed frame, and this is its planned order release. So 300 seed frames should be available, should be ready at the beginning of week 4. Otherwise, I cannot finish my seed sub-assembly on time. Okay? So in order to make 300 seed frames, 1,200 seed frame boards should be available at the beginning of week 4. Why? Because of this parent-child relationship. I'm sorry. This parent-child relationship, okay? no scheduled receipts, on-hand inventory is this one. This is the policy, okay? FOQ policy, fixed order quantity policy, and lead time is 1 week. So 200 units on hand will be at this point, okay? However, this 200 is not enough to meet this demand. Then the order should be received right here. Because the order size is 1500, 1500 will be received, and 200 on hand, and the remaining inventory will be 1700 minus 1200, 500 units, okay? And this will be kept in the next week. When this order should be given, lead time is 1 week. This order should be given right here. This is what MRP explosion is, okay? After we explode MRP, we will get a plan of when each component should be produced, when they should be ordered from supplier, and so on. And as I said before, this is only for one SKU. And when we have different types of bicycles or different types of chairs, okay, especially when there is a common part commonality, we are consider all this information. We are going to generate lumpy demand for dependent items, and then we will start to work on detailed production plans, considering our capacities, considering our bottleneck information, and then we may need to prioritize to produce some products than some others. Okay, at the end, considering our resources, we will develop manufacturing resource planning. And these are the further topics you had better to learn if you are interested in production planning and manufacturing planning topics. Okay, this is the end of my discussion. I hope it helps your studies. I hope you enjoyed them. Again, I only covered the basics of MRP, material requirement planning. Yep, that's it. Have a nice day. Take care.